Hello, hello, hello. So today we're going to go on with the serious subjects of white genocide and farm murders. Truth or fiction? Truth or fiction? So in the previous video we spoke about some of the impacts and the reasons for this so-called phenomenon of farm murders and white genocide, or let me say false genocide. There's no white genocide in South Africa, and farm murders are real, but it's not necessarily what you think. Look at the statistics. Look at the statistics of farm murders versus normal the normal murder rate in South Africa, or homicide rate in South Africa. Investigate that. Okay, so there's there were historical reasons for land inequality. Then there is like the current crime, high levels of crime and the extreme levels of violence of all crime in South Africa. Then like the government responses, which in many cases are well intentioned, but delayed or incompetent or inhibited by lack of resources, or the inappropriate or ineffective application of resources. By the way, the ineffectiveness of application of resources, like let's say spending your budget efficiently and effectively, that's a big problem in South Africa in all spheres of government, but that's for another time. And then of course, no matter how you measure farm murders, on how bad or extremely bad or not bad they are, the perception is there that it is very bad. And because of this, like these economic disincentives, people do not want to do farming, both the farm workers and the farmers. And this has led to food insecurity because we have like less production. And also, like, some farmers are just leaving. Yesterday I read about farmers just going to Canada because of like, at the time of the making of this video, Canadian visa requirements for farm workers and farmers were like beneficial. So we're losing these people, the farmers, and we're losing them permanently. And then, we also mentioned in the previous video, farmers are specialists. It's like a doctor. You don't, or a surgeon. You don't like replace them like that to just step in. And even if you did, why would they want to go to this violent place or, this insecure place? Because remember, you can go back to a farm on a border area. If it borders like Mozambique or whatever, you can go back. But do you have the money to build like a three-story cement, a cement like wall around your farmhouse? By the way, like in South Africa, they say building a fence is always better because you can see through a fence, and with the naked eye. I know we have drones and CCTV, but like those things may fail, and then you can still manually see through like on what's on the other side of the fence, and you can also shoot through the fence with a gun. But these things, even if you just put a fence, never mind electrical, just a plain vanilla fence, it's a lot of money. Because like, remember, the fence also needs to be away from the farmhouse, like far enough so you have like a shooting range up to the fence. If the fence is too close to the house, then if you want to like shoot out of a window, please, gun experts or farmers who are experts in this field of farm defense, please tell us more about how to defend farms, or what's like the appropriate response. Of course, I'm not asking you to divulge on community secrets if it will put you in danger, of course. Like, we also don't want to be a criminal go-to guide for how to attack a farm. And like, if you're going to put, like, a fence simply isn't enough. You have to have, like, if you're going to be in a danger area, and there's many of them, like in the rural areas, like, you will need infrared sensors, you will need motion detectors, electric fence, you'll need backup generators for if the power is cut. You will need like a proper kick-ass radio for if the telephone lines are cut. You know, you'll need multiple guns, you'll need to go for gun training, you'll need to like buy a proper safe to put your guns, to store your guns. Maybe even you need to have a safe room, you know, God knows. And these things are expensive. No one's going to, like, or very, very few people will have the capital to invest, like, you know, in these things. You know, if the government buys it for them, like, rather, if I said these far-right, like, organizations which moans and bitch about it all the time, like far-right organizations in Europe and the US, you know, InfoWars listeners, Fox and listeners, put your money where your mouth is. Buy these farmers, like, you know, proper fences. Buy them like proper motion detectors. Give them drones, you know, like, give them money to build proper security infrastructure, like, so they are safe. So, like, yeah, and this is an impact on food security because people can't afford these security measures. Now, the second part of the video, this was just the introduction. The second part of the video is mainly about the role of hate speech and the real or fictitious or the perceived narrative of white genocide in South Africa also, which is like, for those of you who don't understand, like replacement theory, okay? Let's dive straight into it. Okay. In the discussion around farm murders, inflammatory rhetoric and hate speech play a significant role. When political figures use language that incites division or violence, it can contribute to a hostile climate where crime against specific groups may be implicitly or explicitly encouraged. In South Africa, certain leaders have faced criticism for using language that some argue fuels racial and economic tensions, particularly around the issue of land ownership and crime. Rhetoric and public perceptions of farm murders. Impact on social climate. Hate speech or racially charged language from influential figures often amplifies public fear, resentment, or anger, and can legitimize violence against specific groups. This rhetoric contributes to a divisive social climate where farm murders may be framed or understood by some justified or retaliatory acts. So, the scholarly insight. According to a study by Naidu and Moshweshwe in 2021 in the Journal of Social Psychology in South Africa, rhetoric that demonizes human groups can normalize violence against them, especially when those groups are perceived as economically privileged. So yeah, it's like a politician says something and, you know, 30 years ago, it would have, like, if he was lucky, it would get into a newspaper or a radio broadcast. Like, I don't know, those of you who are, like, familiar with the radio broadcasts of, was it Radio Rwanda or something during the Rwanda genocide? Interestingly enough, one of the DJs on that radio station was this Italian guy, and when the genocidal government fell, this Italian guy fled to Somalia, became a Muslim, and was later extracted by the French government. And yeah, he was like prosecuted in Italy, and I don't know, unfortunately he walked at the end of the day, like, because the guy, is beyond homicide, like, but in any case, that's a tangent. Now, with social media, and especially the resurgence of X, where apparently everything, goes, and Telegram, which doesn't like really pay attention to what's going on in its groups, hate speech can flow very quickly. It can become very viral, and once viral, once downloaded onto a cell phone, even if like, let's say it's propagating on WhatsApp, and WhatsApp, like the admin, the algorithm stop it, like stop that virality at that point in time. Remember, this video, let's say, has already been saved by 10,000 people on their phones or laptops or whatever, and now they are sending it via other channels where, like, let's say it's a web channel like the far-right Stormfront or some black nationalist channel like on the internet, which is not monitored, like basically now it becomes Canaan on those websites. Now it's real. It has joined the real narrative. And this is why it's so dangerous. And quite often people don't see it for what it is. They don't see hate speech for what it is, and it gets stuck in a court. If it gets stuck in a South African court, it's worst case scenario, because then it can take freaking years. There was this like guy called John Kulani, which said some hateful things about like LGBTQ people, and it took years. It was, god damn it, I don't know how long it took, 5 years, 10 years. It took forever. Like, the guy said stuff and he appealed when the verdict came out against him. He appealed like twice in 2 different courts, and like eventually in the laws, I think he actually went to the goddamn Supreme Court, or not Supreme, the Constitutional Court in South Africa, and then he lost. And he had to create a public apology in a newspaper. That's actually the worst. If you just have to make an apology, like you need to get real prison sentence for making hate speech. Like, that's how you stop it. That's the incentive of stopping hate speech. And in South Africa, some people go to jail for hate speech, but others don't, unfortunately, for the system. Examples of inflammatory statements by South African politicians. Julius Malema, Economic Freedom Fighters, or EFF. Julius Malema is very, how do I say it in the political correct way? Like, he's a very colorful person, okay? Like, and he says all kinds of nonsense on not just Twitter, like freaking, he retweets a lot of nonsense as well. He will just say something, in a massive rally nonetheless. And it will be like some of his followers are so loyal, they won't doubt anything that he says. They won't doubt a single thing. I'm not going to call them programmed robots or whatever, but they do live many of them do live in an echo chamber. And there is just no, like, they think mainstream media is like a lie or a propaganda hit piece or whatever, like they don't believe in it. So let's look at what he actually said. He's the leader of the EFF, by the way. He has made multiple statements that critics argue incite violence. In 2016, he was recorded saying, "We are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now." That's what he said. The phrase was widely criticized as veiled incitement for violence. I'm not sure if he was prosecuted for this or not. Maybe not. Like, if you're a lawyer guy, please tell us what happened in this case, because it seems to me that he can do anything he wants. It really does seem that way. And just gets away with it. In 2018, he called for expropriation of land without compensation, framing white-owned farmland as stolen from black people. Malema's rhetoric, while focused on economic justice, often includes language that many believe escalates racial tensions and implies that reclaiming land may necessitate violence. Now look, if you say all white farmland, all white farmland of white people was stolen from black people, that's true to an extent, but it's also very loaded. Because remember, I can go, like, I don't have money to buy a farm, but like if I go and buy a farm, I can buy it from, South Africa's a capitalist country, I can buy it from a black seller, I can buy it from a white seller, an Indian seller, you know, whoever, you know, mixed ethnicity seller, and then it's a legal purchase. You know, so what are you going to do? Like, are you going to come after my legally purchased land? Like, the amount of farms that's been in a family for 5 generations, those are actually the minority. Like, you know, in most cases, like, you know, a dad will have 2 sons. One wants to be a doctor, the other one wants to have his own business with mechanics, and they study up. He borrows their money, maybe they can do those businesses. And then the farm, you know, on his deathbed, like no one wants to farm. They've got their own lives in the city. They never wanted to live on the farm in any case. Like then it gets sold to someone else. My farm and I mentioned my uncle's a farmer and my nephew as well. They bought their farms, you know, but it's not like this 10 generation, 5 generation farm. No, they bought it, you know, they didn't steal it. Like, so although like, yes, 150 years ago, like some farmers maybe like pushed some black people off their land, and in another video I think the previous video or in another video I spoke about the 1913 Land Act in South Africa, which is called the regional sin. Yeah, sure. You like, you know, as a black person, you know, like your great granddad or your great granddad, I don't know what would your familial link be for someone who was like, let's say 20 years old in 1913, that would have like been stolen, you know, factually. But to frame it in such language, in the atmosphere in South Africa, which I did mention was a united country, but, you know, is still where like hate speech can flow so easily in a country where the pass rate for math and science is 30%. I'm not making this up. I am not making this up. Go and check this yourself. The pass rate for math and science is 30%, 30. Okay, so I'm not saying people are stupid. I'm just saying that the government, like, maybe, I don't want to create a conspiracy theory, but maybe the government wants people not to be educated, so they ask too many questions. Like, so you can see how hate speech flourishes. It's like medieval Europe. Oh, that woman is a witch. You know, meanwhile, it's just a weird woman or a depressed woman or a mentally ill woman who lives on the side of the village because no one wants to talk to her. Now she's a witch, you know, because the village people made it up. Okay, next, as we say in Afrikaans, sondebok, which translates roughly into English as gazelle of sin, or goat of sin. It means like a perpetrator. Yes, it's a perpetrator. That's like the real meaning. He's called, oh my word, I'm going to slaughter this pronunciation. I'm so sorry I know this guy's Izikoza or something. Like, I apologize sincerely to all Izikoza people for getting this wrong. Like, Andile I'm sorry, that's the best I can do. I'm just going to call him for the rest of the thing and Andile. Okay, you can. It's spelled MNX XITAMA. He's a very smart fellow, by the way. He's got a PhD, I believe, or a master's at least. He's not retarded, and I think he has written a book or something. And he has his own news website. He doesn't have a big following because, look, it doesn't matter if you're educated, you can still say retarded things and stupid things which most people don't support or adhere to. However, it's a person, he still has I think 100,000 Twitter followers. So even although your organization, if you start an organization, the civic organization for the preservation of water and rivers in Iowa, okay, your organization may only have 1,000 members, okay, but that's not your full impact, okay. Your impact is the influence you have as a total, on the total amount of population. Because remember, your 1,000 members have their own social media accounts. Each of these 1,000 members have let's say, what does psychologists say? You have between 5 to 15 friends. They influence their friends. They can influence their own personal family. And most importantly, they have their own social media. Another thing with social media is, remember, you can tweet something, okay, and then that tweet may be put into can be taken up and retweeted or reworded by someone else and versed in such a way to make it more spicy, more enticing, more of a hook. You give it more of a hook, and that thing by itself can go viral too. So, just because you have a small organization doesn't make you powerless. You can punch well above your weight level. He said, Mr. Andile, for every one black person killed, we will kill 5 white people. Okay. This comment was widely condemned as promoting racial violence and further dividing South African society. So yeah, look, as united as we are as South Africans, we do get these calls for genocide now and then. On a blue moon, we do get. Go, if you don't believe me, go and analyze social media. Go on to one of the South African news websites on the Facebook page. Wait until they have an article, or just go and search for historical articles about some racial thing, any racial thing. Go and read the comments. Take 20 minutes and go and read the comments. Just do that if you don't believe me. Mr. Andile also referred to farm murders as justified retribution, a sentiment that fuels tensions between black and white South Africans and creates dangerous narratives around land and economic retribution. So if you start using the words retribution, and especially justified retribution, it sounds like the language of Trump. Let's say for your average Democrat, just going to ignore that. He's well, go screw yourself. I don't care. You're just talking nonsense. This is a way to obviously scare me or incite me. But let's say for 10% of the population, this is a terrifying thing to hear. And they may then act out. They will say, look, if I'm going to be attacked, and if this attack may be imminent, maybe I should do a preemptive attack to protect myself. It's the best way I can survive. This is the problem with hate speech. It doesn't just rile up one group of people. It riles up multiple groups of people. and this is the problem. It doesn't even these days it doesn't even stay within the confines of one country. It can like go wherever. You know, it goes abroad, it goes overseas, and it affects people there. I've traveled, and people would come to me with all kinds of stories like, "Oh yes, is there white genocide in South Africa? Like, is that why you're here?" And I'm like, "No, there's not. But we have pretty retarded politicians in South Africa who basically make the situation so much worse." Traditional leaders and smaller parties, some lesser-known leaders have used similar rhetoric, framing land reform in terms of taking back what was stolen, with calls for land to be reclaimed by any means necessary. Any means necessary. What does any means necessary mean? Like, does it mean like you're gonna go to the stolen land and pelt the owner with eggs every day or whatever time he exits his farm? Are you going to pelt him with eggs and like cow dung? Are you going to slash his tires? Are you going to pour petrol on his rose garden so he can't grow roses again? Are you going to like cut off like the tendons of his cows so his cows can no longer walk and die, so he'll have to put them out? Are you going to wait until he goes to church or until he goes on a shopping spree with his entire family and burn down his house? Or are you going to do something much darker? What does by any means necessary mean? You know, like so many people use this. So many people, like in so many contexts, all across the globe. You know, and it's a very strong, it's a very loaded term. Loaded language. I made a series of videos about disinformation and misinformation, and in fact, I didn't mention loaded language. Like loaded language, you add a little, added information, you pad in a little extra message or narrative in there to say something extra that you can deny, like in a court, if I go and sue someone for this, you know, like by any means necessary, and they've got a lawyer that's not mentally retarded, like they will walk, because the judge will just say like, "Look, we don't know really what he meant," you know. Because that's what his lawyers will argue, and a judge will have to be a judge will have to think like me, you know, in the sense that, you know, very neutral, that you said by any means necessary. Can you define right now in front of this entire court what by any means necessary means? Do you want to kill people? Yes or no? Does that, and can you deny on the record, on paper, right now in this court, that you do not mean to harm, torture, or kill people in any way? Can you say it in a court, yes or no? And then that's how the court case should proceed. If you said you misspoke, or you were drunk, or you were emotional, different story. But like if you can't do this in a court, then a problem. So traditional leaders in South Africa is also not, traditional leaders in any part of the world, they're not meritocratic leaders. They inherited, they were born into the position. Okay. Legal and societal responses to hate speech in South Africa. South African law prohibits hate speech, and individuals can be prosecuted for incitement to violence. The Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act of 2000 specifically bans language that incites violence against the group. Both Malema and Mr. Andile have faced legal challenges over their comments, though court rulings have varied in interpretation. Court rulings have varied in interpretation. Case example. In 2019, the South African Human Rights Commission, or SAHRC, ruled that certain comments by Malema constituted hate speech. However, enforcement and interpretation of hate speech laws are often controversial and have had limited success in fully addressing inflammatory rhetoric. Social media and the spread of rhetoric. Social media amplifies political rhetoric, spreading messages to a broader audience and often intensifying their impact. A 2020 study by the South African Institute of Race Relations found that hateful rhetoric on platforms like Twitter and Facebook contributes to spikes in racially motivated violence, particularly rural violence. Yeah, like Twitter and Facebook can be very dodgy. Like, I saw documentaries and news programs where they speak to Twitter and Facebook employees who just broke down on the job and had to leave because they have this unfortunate job of going through these nasty comments and basically just dealing with them. And imagine dealing with toxicity in your 8 to 5 job all the time. You know, it is like very few people can do it. And Facebook doesn't address this problem like sufficiently. Public reactions and the normalization of violence. Community polarization. When leaders make inflammatory remarks, it often leads to greater social division. Research shows that rhetoric framing farm murders as part of racial economic struggle can desensitize communities to violence, making it easier for individuals to rationalize or support criminal acts as retribution or justice. Scholarly perspective. The Normalization of Hate Speech and Its Effect on Crime by Dlamini in 2021 in the South African Journal of Criminology argues that while political figures and community leaders endorse or minimize violence, it increases the likelihood of hate crimes and vigilante actions in their followers. Key takeaway. Hate speech, I don't really believe in microaggressions, but I do believe in death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's the expression. These things build up over time. Like if you look at the, this is such a tricky video because this is, I am paranoid that someone's going to take this video, they're going to take like a 15-minute clip and they're going to make it go viral. Well, actually, I'll be honored to an extent if something goes viral, but then freaking the video won't be watched in both videos because this is a 2-video segment, and it will be taken out of context. It happened the other day. A guy, I think he shouldn't have done it. It was another stupid race comment. He said something and it was hyperbole. It was just creating an example. And the way he did it was in a very stupid way. And he shouldn't have done it, but it was hyperbole nonetheless. However, no one showed the full video. I guess there's practical reasons involved, like a news organization can't show a 1-hour video. That's fair. They can, however, make a link available for someone to go and watch the 1-hour video. That, they didn't do that. And then you create a narrative about someone. That happened. The guy was called Ronaldo Gous, and I don't agree with Ronaldo Gous on absolutely most of what he says. I don't agree with him on 80% of what he says, but and what he said in this instance was very retarded. He could have used so many different ways to say what he wanted to say. Clearly, he wasn't thinking, properly when he was making the video, which can happen to everyone. Like, there was another example. There was this video of Jair Bolsonaro where he said some very nasty things about a woman, and it was how long was the video? I'm counting seconds for my mind to make sense. I'm not a very intelligent person. But in any case, yeah, it was about a 5-second video, 8-second video, where he says something super nasty to a woman. What they don't show you is the 15-minute video, where the woman screams at him hysterically about something he didn't commit, a crime he didn't commit. She accuses him of this crime repeatedly. Like, she's not having a conversation like we're having now, in a normal tone of voice, discussing, like, let's say, because he does have misogynistic views, but she accused him of a crime that he didn't commit. Not only did she accuse him of a crime in a normal conversation like this with like many, like examples and like, scholarly like quotes or whatever, she screamed at him, same sentence, like, okay, it was in Portuguese, but let's say a four word sentence. She screamed at him like for so many minutes that the guy, like, go and do yourself a favor, go walk into a classroom and ask the students to scream at you for 2 minutes. See how it feels. Okay, imagine a woman screams at you, well, I'm saying woman, any person, a man, screams at you for like 10 minutes. You will snap. It's like, it's an audio assault on the ears. That's why they use like audio torture at the Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib prisons. It's like audio torture is a form of torture. And yeah, the guy snapped and he said this retarded thing, but they didn't. They showed the 5-second video. They did, or the 8-second video. They didn't show the 15-second video. Okay, massive tangent. Sorry. Now we're going to our last section. The headline is White Genocide, Truth or Fiction. I'm just going to come out and straight out and say White Genocide is fiction. And I can say this because I'm Afrikaner. My people have stayed in South Africa for almost 400 years. So I know what I'm talking about. I know like dozens of South Africans, if not hundreds. And like, I've been all over South Africa. My uncle is a farmer. My nephew is a farmer. Like, I know other farmers too, like friends of mine who have family in farming or who have an extra farm themselves. Like, this isn't true. And we looked at the statistics in the first video. You can go and find more statistics about this. And if you are a statistics, I'm saying again, nerd, if you're a statistics lover or a fundi in statistics, like, post us some more statistics and like give us the source information that's been cited by other people. So I don't want the InfoWars like link that's retarded. Like, give me a link, give us like proper information, and we can have a discussion about this. Analyzing the white genocide narrative in South Africa. In recent years, the term white genocide has circulated in discussions about farm murders in South Africa, especially in international media and on social platforms. This segment delves into whether the claim of white genocides stand up to empirical scrutiny. We'll examine available statistics, academic research, and perspectives on how this term has been used and its implications. Origins of the white genocide narrative. First appearance in media. The term white genocide in relation to South Africa first gained traction in the early 2000s, largely on international online forums and conservative news sites. It was initially tied to fears surrounding land reform policies and farm attacks that disproportionately affected white farmers. International attention. In 2018, the term reached mainstream visibility when Australian Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton suggested that white South African farmers needed refuge due to persecution, drawing sharp reactions worldwide. This intervention spurred debates in Western media about alleged genocide of white South Africans. Social media proliferation. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and forums like Reddit saw a rise in white genocide discussions, often amplifying reports of farm murders without contextualizing them within the broader South African crime statistics. I want to add something to this. There used to be, when I was at university in the early 2000s, there was this guy, this nutcase, and he was part of the Christian right as well, not Christians, the Christian right. And he had this like theory, or this prophet, it was a prophecy called Uhuru. Uhuru, okay, it's the same name as the Kenyan word meaning, or the Swahili Kenyan word meaning, what's the revival? I don't know, if you're like Kenyan, please tell us what Uhuru means in your language. But in the South African context, in the context of these far-right nuts, Uhuru meant that the moment Nelson Mandela died, like black people support or like respect Nelson Mandela so much that they will wait until his death. On the day or night of Nelson Mandela's death, there will be mass genocide perpetrated by black people against white people. And this guy he took Bible scripture. He took Bible scripture. I'm not mocking the Bible. I'm mocking taking the Bible out of context. And he took parts of the Bible out of context to support this narrative. He also used, sorry, it's just hilarious. Like, he used a story from a so-called white prophet who lived about in the circa 1900s, was about 30 years old then, called Siener van Rensburg, which means Seer van Rensburg. I don't know his first name, who were a prophet during the Boer War. And he, like, look, he was a goddamn prophet. Like, you know, these people never, I'm not mocking biblical prophets or Islamic prophets. Like, I'm mocking modern day prophets. Like, they say some nonsense and people want to believe it because people are scared, people are concerned. So here comes someone with a supernatural solution. And it happens when you are terrified enough, like if you're scared enough, you know, or if you're hopeless enough, you will look at supernatural like solutions, like religious solutions. I pray very seldomly, once every couple of months, but I will pray before I write the exam, to put it into perspective. I will pray before an exam because I believe in that. I believe it, well, I'm so scared, I believe in that moment it may help, you know, like, essentially, like, this guy said the Boers will win the Boer War, which made him popular immediately in the Afrikaans psyche. What Afrikaners or Boers like, I don't like the word boer. Boer is derogatory. I prefer Afrikaner. Like boer is actually derogatory. Go and check the dictionary. You know, if you're Afrikaner, unless you're a farmer, an actual farmer, because farmer means boer. Unless you're an actual farmer, then you are a boer, or actually the correct pronunciation in Afrikaans is boer. But because Afrikaans has this nice little rolling R, which you will probably have seen in all of my videos, Afrikaans has this super nice rolling R. It's boer, okay? But like, so we don't expect people internationally to be able to say boer, so we will accept boer, like silent British R, or however the Americans say it. But like, it's a bit derogatory unless you're an actual farmer. If someone is not a farmer, please, we're an ethnicity. We have a proper modern name, and it's Afrikaners. Please address us as such. In any case, Afrikaners conveniently forgot that he got this massive like prophecy about winning the war wrong. However, this wasn't the only prophecy he made. He made dozens. God knows, I'm not going to read his book because it's going to be a waste of my time. Like, but but maybe I should, like, just to make a video about it, because you know some of these people like David Koresh and what was the other nutcase, Jim Jones, those retards from Heaven's Gate. I shouldn't call them retards. Like, adherents to cults. The overwhelming majority of adherents to cults, except the 10% who are the police. I mean, the policemen or the enforcers of the cult are victims. They're victims and they should be treated as such. Like, that was like off color. I shouldn't have said that. But like, he has made so many prophecies, and it's strange prophecies. It's like, you know, it's like all prophecies made by modern day prophets, that it can't be, the event only has to happen and first, and then you can somehow reframe it or like say, okay, it fits into this. And the things are usually written in a generic way. Like, apparently the last nonsense I heard from the guy was he predicted COVID because he said, like, there will be a disease from the east. You know, why didn't he just say there will be a disease from like Wuhan? Why couldn't he be specific? You know, like, he couldn't do that. He had to be like, you know, he had to like freaking put it in vague language. But then people will say, oh, okay, but he predicted it. He has to be right. Like, but in any case, people went and they took this prophecy about the Uhuru, where black people will attempt to murder all whites on the death of Nelson Mandela. They became like doomsday. He got people to become doomsday preppers, buy weapons, buy food, build shelters, create military plans and plans for evacuation. And people believed it. I had friends, smart, intelligent friends. I studied engineering. I'm talking about people who had their honors in engineering, very smart people, believing in this. And, you know, this was in the early 2000s, like Nelson Mandela was still, I don't want to say spring chicken, but he was still pretty well and alive at that time. And then, well, lo and behold, when he died, no such thing happened, because it was a bullshit prophecy. However, this thing became lore, and almost a shibboleth, I don't know how to pronounce it, like so much that it gets into a more mainstream Afrikaans media or narrative, and then that narrative may jump overseas. It may jump into the arms of Fox News, and Fox News will make some bullshit story like they always do. Look, I'm talking bad about you, Fox. I'll say the same shit about, like, I'll say the same stuff about, like, RT. I'll say the same stuff about Sputnik. I'll say the same stuff about the Chinese news network. If you don't report on everything, and if you don't stick with the truth, I think you're a rubbish channel. I think you're a rubbish organization. You're unethical and you're lying. And you're trying to drive a narrative. Same for you, MSNBC. Like, we see you. We see you. Also, Mr. Andile, Mr. Mandile, the only thing I apologize to you is for getting your name wrong. I shouldn't. I should have done research about your name before doing this video. But you as well. Black opinion is super slanted and it's super incorrect, and you basically you talk about things and that you want to talk about, and then you bend the message. Okay, people notice it. People can be misled. People can be driven into cults or fooled into cults, but people aren't stupid. People are smart. Don't never forget that. And this is the most important thing. People can be helped by other people. Remember this. People can be helped by other people, either because they're friends, because they're loyal, because they're family, or because it's a concerned outsider or Samaritan wishing to help his fellow man. We're a social species. We can help each other. I'm trying to help people to find the truth. Or at least, look, I am not right on everything. I don't have a PhD in communication and media science and politics and socioeconomics, all of these things to make me correct on everything I say. That's why I often invite people to comment, let's get a broader conversation going. In any case, so just one more thing about Fox. Fox pushes this replacement theory too. And replacement theory is similar to white genocide. It's a myth. There's no proof for it. I remember about 20 years ago, there was some Chicano march. Chicanos are the Mexican, nationalists in the United States. And they just had a run-of-the-mill, plain vanilla march, And then Fox made a story about them wanting Mexico to invade the US, which point one is impossible because the US is too strong. Point two, Mexico has no such intention. So it's just lies and nonsense. So people would watch your channel because it's entertainment. It creates entertainment. I'm also an entertainer to an extent. I'm not. If I'm just being boring, and maybe I am boring right now, I don't know, it's interesting to me. I hope it's interesting to some of you as well. But if I'm boring, you simply won't watch my channel. You won't watch this video. It's what media does. It tries to be interesting. If it's super boring, people won't watch. Then you may as well have done nothing. But look, to make something entertaining doesn't mean you need to bend the truth. You just need to hook people to read it. But that's where the media, that's why now the responsible media are trying to come up with the truth sandwich. I want to do a video about the truth sandwich because it's a good thing, I think. Okay, too much nonsense, too many tangents. Let's get into the stats, the statistics. That's why you want to watch this video. Okay, South African crime statistics and farm murder data. General crime rates in South Africa. South Africa is one of the highest homicide rates globally. In 2021, SAPS, South African Police Service, reported over 20,000 murders across the country, with an average rate of approximately 36 per 100,000 people. This places South Africa amongst the top 10 countries for homicide. Ooh, I have an issue with this one. Homicide murder rate, isn't it 57 people? I don't know why I have it like this. let's go with 36 for now, but like I think it's 57. Unless it's unless it may be for farm murders. It may be for farm murders, the statistic. I don't know. But the general murder rate per 100,000 is one of the highest in the world. Whereas dangerous, we're not the same, obviously, but we will be in the top 10 along with Venezuela, along with Brazil, Mexico. South African crime, farm murders as a subset of total murders. Average farm murders annually in 2010 to 2020. SAPS data indicated an average of 58 murders annually over the last decade, representing a very small fraction, about 0.3% of the total annual murders in South Africa. So, 58 farm murders annually in the last, in 2010 to 2020. There's like about 5.5 million whites in South Africa. That's 58 murders in a decade, considering population, total white population is 5.5 million. Does it sound like a genocide? And it's a small fraction, 0.3%. 2021 data. SAPS reported 74 murders on farms and small holdings, especially that while these incidents are severe and often brutal, they do not constitute widespread targeting white South Africans. Race and demographics of victims. A report by the Institute of Security Studies, or ISS, in 2018 found that while white farmers are overrepresented in farm attacks due to historical land ownership patterns, black South Africans constitute the majority of overall homicide victims, particularly in urban areas. Farm worker victimization. Approximately 33% of farm murder victims are black farm workers, emphasizing that farm violence impacts all demographics involved in agriculture, not exclusively white farmers. So yeah, 33% of it's easy to imagine. Like, let's say farm attackers often lie traps. They lie traps to attack the main guy, the business owner, the farmer. Remember, the farm is surrounded by employees, farm workers. And let's say a farm worker may go on a regular walk or a patrol looking for a missing sheep, or going to look if a certain valve or a tap is open or closed, and may stumble upon these attackers, and then they will kill him, or her, usually a man, but they will kill him because it's collateral damage. He's just there in the way. But I also want to say there's a large amount of black farmers, and black farmers have the same issues as white farmers, to a certain extent worse, because it's more like the civic organizations protecting black farmers aren't as strong as those protecting white farmers. There are exceptions. Now and then, AfriForum, it's the main body protecting or looking after the affairs of white South Africans. They will mention black farmers, and TAU, the Transvaal Agricultural Union or Farmers Union, they protect everyone. As soon as you're a farmer, no matter how big, no small, you're represented and you're in this lobby organization, and your voice will be heard. If you're a member of AfriForum or the TAU or I think Agri SA, please leave some comments. Let us know about your knowledge and experience and what you have seen so far. Academic perspectives on white genocide claim. Social scholarly reference. Misconceptions of genocide. Naido and Radebe in 2019 in Journal of African Studies analyzed the narratives of white genocide and argued that the term does not meet the academic or legal definitions of genocide, which requires intent to eliminate, in whole or in part, a specific group based on race, ethnicity, or nationality. Study on racially motivated violence. Dlamini in 2021 in South African Journal of Criminology conducted a review of over 5,000 farm attacks and concluded that most attacks were economically motivated, targeting isolated rural properties perceived as vulnerable rather than specifically targeting white individuals. Dlamini's study highlights that in most cases, farm attacks involved theft or robbery rather than racially motivated violence. Legal definition of genocide and applications to South Africa. According to the UN Genocide Convention, genocide involves the intent to destroy a natural, ethnical, racial, or religious group. Scholarly analysis indicates that farm murders, while tragic and impactful, do not meet this threshold, as the violence affects diverse demographics and lacks evidence of coordinated, targeted extermination. So yeah, that's the UN Genocide Convention. Like, if you want to argue with the UN Genocide Convention, good luck. I know like there will be some Americans and Russians and Chinese people, you know, the big five, will like, oh, the UN or some crazy person, or oh, the UN is biased or whatever. The UN is the best we have. There is no better organizer. I'm not saying the UN is perfect. I'm not saying the UN is perfect. The UN has many, many, many flaws, but it's the best we have. There is no better organization like looking at genocide. And remember, when you're an organization looking at genocide, studying genocide, you have to look at all genocides, not just one genocide, not just genocides in Europe, not just genocides in South America, like, or just one country. You have to look at all genocides, because it's like, you know, it's important for two reasons. Like, you need like credibility that you're fair, that you look after all human life. Point two, like, you need the expertise of the other cases that you're studying, so that you have, your lens is cleaner, your lens is more accurate to see your second, third, fourth problem. Are these like, how do they compare? So that you can like put a proper like warning level on these genocides that are happening, or potential genocides that may happen. There is another statistic, I forgot the exact statistics, but South Africa, if you look at US Genocide Watch, we're not like, how do you say, a blue or a green country. There are some warning signs. And it's because of these retards, or I'm not going to call them retards, these people who like make false statements, the politicians who make false statements, the organizations like, you know, Amnesty International or whatever, they have no choice but to include South Africa on a potential genocide list because of social media and the nonsense that some people spew. Reactions from South African and international authorities. The government. President Cyril Ramaphosa has consistently rejected the notion of white genocide, emphasizing that farm murders are part of a broader violent crime issue that South Africa faces. In a 2018 statement, he said, "There is no white genocide happening in South Africa. Rather, we have a serious crime issue affecting all citizens." And here I agree with the president. Like, you are in the greatest threat group are actually young black men aged between 20 and 25 living in slums. That's like the greatest, if you're in that demographic, yeah, then the probability is the highest. That's why this is why yeah, maybe I should put it in the comments, but like, look, any tourists who want to come to South Africa, look, South Africa is like any other country. It depends on where you're going. Are you going to go into a slum? Are you going to go into the slum at 3 a.m. to buy drugs? Yes, then you are in serious danger. Are you going to be like in a fancy schmancy wine tasting tour in a group of 30 tourists going to a wine farm in the Western Cape, which is maybe one of the best governed provinces in South Africa? Yeah, you're not perfectly safe. You know, it's not Iceland, like, although there's volcanoes in Iceland, but I'm talking from a crime perspective, like you're very safe. If you're in the Kruger National Park, you're very safe. So it depends on where you are. It's the same if I go to France. You know, if I go into like one of these banlieues, how do you say it in French? Like banlieue, like the outer circle, the outer fringe of Paris. If I go into one of these things wearing a Israeli t-shirt and like a Star of David around my neck, and I put on like a little hat and walked around, and like it's like freaking 10 at night, you know, yeah, I won't be safe for many reasons. Like, so, and that's France. France, you know, it's a European country, it's supposed to be safe. Like, you know, yeah, there's many places in the world that you won't be safe. Like, so I just want to put that into perspective as well. Hence this video, like, dispelling the notion of white genocide. Ironically enough, I saw it was the first video. The moment I posted it, I got this Wikipedia. Well, it's good, I guess. I got this Wikipedia message stating that, yeah, like it's a myth, blah, 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 so on and so forth, or a message, like, which is good. This is how social media companies should operate. It should be with AI, it should be automatic to stop this nonsense from being amplified and going viral. Let's just see what the Americans said. In 2018, the United States Department of State released a report noting that while South Africans experience high levels of violent crime, there was no evidence to support claims of a white genocide. European Union's officials similarly refrained from characterizing farm attacks as genocide, focusing instead on South Africa's high overall crime rate. Again, the UN and here the US. It may change now if for the 2024 next couple of years cycle with Donald Trump may change, but just because he says it doesn't make it true. Donald Trump also once apparently asked the question that if you put a nuclear bomb on a forming hurricane in the East Atlantic, if it will stop the bomb. To ascertain what someone has said, and you probably know this, like, go and see what they have previously said. Like, and, you know, is your grandmother wise? Is what your grandmother told you now, like, you know, brush your teeth, like, you know, carefully, brush your teeth downwards or else your teeth will fall out. Is that wise or not? Then go and look at the previous 10 or 20 or 100 things she said and see if those predictions or warnings or advices that she gave or made, like, were they accurate? And if the answer is yes, your grandmother is a very trustworthy person whose advice you should follow. But if it's let's say if it's a friend that tell you, oh, don't worry, you know, methamphetamine isn't like addictive. Look at like the previous stuff that he has done. Has he ever been in jail? You know, like has he ever been like accused of a crime? Has he ever been evicted of a crime? Has there ever been rumors about him doing a crime? Has he ever like been in a fight with people? Has he ever insulted someone? Then maybe you should not follow his advice. Legal and scholarly analysis by international organizations. Various human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, have reviewed South African crime data, concluding that while farm attacks are of grave concern, labeling them as genocide is misleading and risks inflaming racial tensions. So this is like a very weird and almost uncomfortable video to do, because farm murders are real, and we do have the statistics for farm murders like happening, like the 58 happening in 2010 to 2020. Just because it's a low number, 58, in comparison to the other crime numbers, doesn't make it not serious. It's super serious. Those people lost crime family members. They had family members being tortured in front of their eyes. So they would give the attackers the keys to the safe. You know, like boiled water throwing over people, like people seeing people tortured in front of them, people being killed, you know, people being burnt alive in their homes. You know, like the amount of PTSD that those people experience are immense. It's going to be multi-generational. And if you're a farmer or like someone who was attacked on a farm, and you survived it, I have two things to say to you. Point one, I'm very glad that you survived. I am very sorry that this video has triggered you maybe to relive the experience that was very real. May this experience go away eventually. May your relatives or friends rest in peace, and never be scared to tell your story, the truth of your story. Never be scared to do that. Never let someone shut you up. Just don't embellish it. So still, you know, like it has to be seen that every murder, any one murder is serious. Like, I just want to add that as well. However, getting back to the White Genocide, we have to look at all the data. We have to look at all the statistics. Now I'm going to say something that may get me into trouble, but I feel nonetheless I have to say it. And here I'm addressing the white South African population. Look, there's the story about crying wolf. I believe it's an old Greek or Turkish story, fable. And it's about the boy who cried wolf. And he did it a number of times falsely. And the last time when he was actually attacked by wolves, nobody came because no one believed him and he got killed. So let's be careful how we deal with this narrative, how we construct and propagate it. Because if there is genocide in South Africa, never say never. Remember, we live in a world of quantum physics and parallel universes. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. No one can perfectly tell what the future will be. We can make predictions, but we can't tell exactly what it will be. So let's save this cry for wolf when it's truly necessary. Of course, you may talk about early warning signs, like I'm doing now about the hate speech from Julius Malema. Of course, you may do that. But let's not push false narratives. Let's not come up with fake news and, you know, embellished stories or just plain lies. Let's stick to the facts so that when there is a real danger, we will be taken seriously. Social impact, and I don't want to see my family and friends die. I don't want to see them die. That's why I'm saying this, because I believe this is the best strategy. Social impact of the white genocide narrative. Polarization and misinformation. The white genocide narrative has contributed to polarization within South Africa and abroad. A 2020 study by the South African Institute for Race Relations found that misinformation about farm attacks, including unveiled claims of genocidal intent, exacerbates racial divisions and distracts from addressing root causes of crime, such as poverty and inequality. I just want to say something about this organization which said this, the Institute for Race Relations, or the IRR. It's a very good organization. Please feel free to visit their website. I think it's irr.org or something. And they do some very good work for South Africans. Impact they do a lot of statistics. If you like statistics, you would love, if you're academic as well, if you're a South African and you have studied sociology and some economics and these kinds of things, or psychology, there's a very good chance you would have referenced one of the IRR's reports or research papers. Okay, impact on public policy and international perception. The white genocide narrative has also influenced international perspectives, with some foreign governments perceiving South Africa as unsafe for white residents. The perception affects tourism, foreign investment, and expatriate relations, which are essential to South Africa's economy. And this is another thing. Now I want to address South African expatriates and white South African expatriates in particular. Black expatriates, I'll address you in a different video, in a different topic, on a different time. But remember, I'm not going to come with the nonsense of saying you're an ambassador to your country, because the ambassador means the ambassador. You studied international relationships and you've been appointed in an official position. But because you are a first-hand witness, or you live or used to live in the thick of and thin of things, many overseas people who are, media scarce, who live in a media scarce world, they will take everything you say literally. So I've traveled and I've found so many people telling me nonsense that asking me, am I here because of, in your country because of white genocide? Is it true that Nelson Mandela destroyed your country? Or Nelson Mandela has destroyed your country, how do you feel being in exile? And, then I want to tell them, look, I'm not the exile point one. I can return it anytime I want. I have the economic means for that. Point two, this is just, nonsense. Whoever told you this, tell them they're wrong. Go and check Google Scholar. Go and check the AI, ChatGPT. Go and check the facts. The scholarly insight for this comes from African Media Studies. Mokoena in 2020 discusses how white genocide has been amplified in Western media, distorting the broader socio-economic and criminal realities of South Africa. The study notes that such rhetoric often oversimplifies complex issues, framing farm attacks in racial terms rather than examining the structural inequalities of violence. Okay, lastly, statistical and scholarly consensus on the white genocide claim. Statistical overview. Based on South African crime data, farm murders constitute less than 1% of the country's annual homicides, with the significant portions of victims being non-white. These statistics challenge the white genocide claim by demonstrating that white individuals are not specifically targeted for mass elimination. Scholarly consensus. Researchers and scholars, including Naidu in 2021 in South African Journal of Human Rights, agree that farm murders, while a critical security issue, do not meet the legal criteria of genocide and are better understood as part of South Africa's broader issues with violent crime and rural insecurity. So yes, my closing statement and my conclusion is that farm murders are real. There are farm murders in South Africa. They are very brutal. But there are not nearly as many of them as the narrative likes to paint the picture. If you compare it to violent crime in South Africa in general,